And hello, folks. It's Dr. Brenda, sociologist, financial coach, founder of the Gutsy Women Finances community, where fun and finances meet. Hey, thanks for subscribing. If you don't subscribe, please hit that button below. Hit the bell to be notified of new videos. So I'm doing something new this year. I'm interviewing people who are working from their RV. Get a sense of what this is like. We have Donna with us today, and Donna is working, well, I guess corporate, but able to work from her RV. I'm at South Padre Island in Texas. That's where we're both at. So welcome, Donna. Give us a little bit of an introduction and who you are, what you do.
Okay. Hi, my name is Donna Schauer, and I work for a major aerospace company in the United States, so it's a very large corporation. Due to COVID, we started working remotely. And once people started to go back into the office, they gave us the option of staying remote or going back to the office. Well, the majority of my team stayed remote because we were all loving it so much. During that time, we all learned that we can do everything for our jobs anywhere we are. There's no need to be in an office. And so then I am originally from Minnesota, and have lived there pretty much my whole life, brief stints in Colorado, a few places here and there. Other than that, born and raised and live in Minnesota. I am traveling with my mother, Joanne, and we are down here experiencing our first snowbird winter. And I cleared it with my boss, and I said, I hate winter. I really hate Minnesota winters. And I'm like, can I go work remotely from my camper? And he's like, well, I don't see any problem with that. So
Excellent.
So made plans and just love it. Absolutely love it. I'm 55 years old, so I'm not quite at retirement age yet. But I also have been with my company for almost 12 years. It'll be 12 years in June, so 10 and a half. No, wait. 11 years,
All
not 12.
right.
So I lost track of time.
That's okay.
And so what brought about my decision to do this and work remotely was my husband passed away last spring of a long battle with lymphoma and cancer. So it freed myself up from not having really anything to keep me in Minnesota. I don't have to leave him working. I can just leave. And so I decided to be positive, life's half full, the glass is half full,
yes,
versus wallowing in misery. So I purchased this beautiful big camper and this fifth wheel, 45 feet long, learned how to tow it all by myself with the guide of a couple of truck driver friends who showed me the ins and outs of towing a big, long rig, and decided to start an adventure. And I spent summers traveling on and off, working remotely, getting used to what I needed to have to do this. And I'd go to dog shows or whatever. I'd go on vacation, and my mom and I went up with my brother and his wife to the North Shore of Minnesota for a week in September, and I worked.
Yeah.
I worked in the mornings, took half days off, and did sightseeing and hiking, and did all of that.
Let's back up a bit, because let me see if I can show you this is a big rig. Hi, Mom.
Yeah, you can definitely show the rig.
And so I'm in a little 32-foot motorhome, which is big for some people, but this is big. So learning how to haul it, hitch it up, drive, that intimidates so many women in particular, that they're like, I can't possibly do this. So what, and we were all scared when we started,
right?
I
was terrified.
Yeah.
I still do get a little nervous when I get
too.
Very big traffic, like coming down here through Dallas. I was knuckling it with all the construction and the lane changes and tight lanes, and I was terrified when but I had determined that I was going to conquer this. And I am one that if I usually am faced with a challenge, I want to conquer it. I'm not going to be afraid of something other than skydiving or zip or bungee jumping.
Yeah.
Those are things that
Yeah.
are completely
Yeah.
challenging. Not doing it. But I had help. I had a truck driver who is my roommate right now back in Minnesota, and he taught me everything. And he took me out and we practiced backing up, and he showed me how to do it and how to watch my angles and use my mirrors, and how the hardest thing was figuring out to turn the steering wheel the opposite way when you're backing up,
right,
the opposite way of where you want to go.
What your head tells you to.
Yeah, your
Yes.
head will tell you to turn it this way, but then you get that turning it right, you're going to go left and vice versa. So learning all of that was really hard, but now I can tow this thing and back it up into the tightest little spot. Takes me a little bit of time, but I can do it.
Yeah, for me the scariest part was the gas stations. Man, when you pick the wrong gas stations,
I've done that
just
too.
like, how am I going to get out of here? I can't back up, so I
Yeah.
tow a Jeep and I can't back up. So it's like,
Okay.
oh man, did I
Yeah.
ever screw this up?
I only do truck stops.
Yeah.
I just try and stay away from smaller gas stations, and I do the Flying J's, the
I try to do
Loves,
that too.
and just stay in truck stops. The one challenge biggest challenge I found is at those truck stops, if you don't have a trucker fleet card, sometimes you can't fill up in some of the truck lanes. But now, like, some of them have RV lanes where you can actually go in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, sometimes I've had to go in, especially if I need to put DEF in my truck.
Oh, you've got the diesel?
Because I got a diesel
Okay.
truck, so I have to put DEF in too. And so finding a place that I can actually put DEF in, or I have to go buy the containers and pour them in.
Yeah, yep.
That's been the biggest challenge. But I kind of figure I'm going straight on a freeway, and I just stay in my lane.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I have to shift over, I'm fairly much more. When I first did it, first couple of trips, I didn't leave the right lane. I just stayed. I stayed. But I've gotten much more confident now.
Right. You get a sense of the length, I find, and I mean, because I would I just passed somebody. I'm going to wait a mile until I go back into my lane, and I'm like, oh, no problem, I can do it. But it is growing your confidence. I want to back up a bit because, like, for women, a lot of us don't have this experience at all, and so I want to, I would always say, ask somebody, because most people are happy to give you the basics, or happy to teach you. They want to share their love of whatever they're doing. And so, I mean, is that something that you would recommend too, to just say, hey, ask for help?
I mean, don't be afraid to take on new things in life, because life is, don't take for granted that tomorrow's going to be here. I know that firsthand.
Yeah.
And this was my husband and our dream for our future. We were going to buy a rig just like this and take off and travel. And with his passing, I'm like, you know what? Why not? Why can't I do this now?
Exactly.
And life is too short. So if you're, alone or single, and you're an older woman or even a younger woman, and you want to do something like this, don't let the fact that you don't have a guy to help you keep you from doing it.
Exactly.
Because it's life is too short. If this is your dream to work and experience new places and new things, it's like, life is too short, and why wait till I'm in my 60s to retire and do this if I'm allowed to. And a lot of corporations now are allowing remote working, so it's not unheard of.
Well, they're going to be losing some of their best staff. I mean, some people it's not a good fit for. Other people are very self-motivated.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about the logistics of remote working. So are you still on a schedule? You've got to check in for certain hours of the day. Does anybody monitor how many hours you're spending? Can you quit early when you're done with the job early? Tell us about what kind of arrangements you've worked out.
I made arrangements with my boss. I mean, my boss is very not micromanage. He allows us to be responsible adults. And we have a very ethically centered company. We operate very ethically. What's ethically? I guess that's
yes.
and so they let us have that room. I'm salaried, so as long as I put in my 40 plus, I usually put about 50. But as long as I put my 40 hours in a week, they don't really care when I do that.
Okay.
But I have arrangements. I told my boss this is what my schedule is going to try and be while I'm down here. I usually start early, so I'm online at 6 a.m. and I work for like an hour, maybe hour and a half, and then me and my dogs go for a walk along the beach for about 45 minutes to an hour, give or take. And then I come back and I work, and then sometimes, as long as my mom and I will take out sometimes and do lunch, or go up to the north part of the island and let the dogs run a little bit. And I just work till my 8 hours are done, and then I'm done.
It's the biggest driver, I believe, is flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to be like I do my best work. When people are up at 8 o'clock, I've already worked for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
That's when my head works the best.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
So to be able to take that, my brain is pumped. This is when I work. This is when I do my best work. To be able to take all of that an employee has to offer, and it shouldn't, and boy, I don't know what your commute was like, but that's a huge time saver too, isn't it?
It was about 45 minutes of commuting to get into my office before COVID. And then it's also saving me money too, because I would stop at Caribou and have coffee every day. And I was a terrible lunch packer, so I always bought lunch. So there's like $20 a day just in food that I'm saving myself.
Yeah.
And then the gas of driving back and forth. And I found my happy place when COVID first struck. I was like felt guilty because everybody's so miserable, and I was the happiest I've ever been. Just that work-life balance, just to be able to throw in a load of laundry during the day and then go back and work. I would take my lunches and clean my house instead of waiting till I'd get home that night and then be too tired to do it.
Yeah. Your typical work is, and I worked, nonprofits, but I worked long hours, but you work all week long. The weekend comes along. You're doing your errands. You're doing your grocery shopping. You're preparing stuff for the week. Sunday night comes along. You're doing the yard work. You're doing the housework.
Yeah.
Sunday night comes along, and you're just thinking, man, I got to do it all over tomorrow.
Yeah,
again.
and you got to get up and drive to work, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's I've never been more happy working remotely.
So
ever.
what are the challenges, especially we talked a little bit about technology, but that can be challenging depending on where you are. So I do research in advance to see what's going on with AT&T and Verizon, which are my two carriers, but sometimes neither one of them will work, and I'm at a Starbucks. So tell me about what kind of technology you've
part of
got.
the agreement with my company in order to do this is that I had to make sure I had reliable internet at all times and backups. So I have 4 backups.
Wow.
4 backups. I have my whole home internet. That is my main one, because I stream on all my TVs in this camper are all streaming. I do have a direct TV hooked up on the roof, but I can never get it to work. So I just kind of gave up on that dream, and Amazon Fire Sticks are my friend. So that's what we use TVs for in this place right now until I can figure out the direct TV. Anybody who knows a good direct TV RV person, let me know. Because I've troubleshooted it. I've done everything I can.
Yeah.
So I have the whole home from T-Mobile. I have a hotspot, another hotspot from T-Mobile. I have an Apple hotspot off my work phone, and my personal phone hotspot.
Okay.
So I'm covered. And then I do have a Wi-Fi in the camper that I could turn on if I wanted to.
Okay.
But I don't have that turned on currently.
Yeah, well, usually, I'll go to campgrounds and they'll say they have Wi-Fi, and I just assume that they don't because it's terrible. So if you're new to RVing and you think, oh, this is great, that campground has RV, You might be able to get your email from it every
No.
other day. You're never going to be able to upload a document ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really bad. So I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that people need to be aware of.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I don't rely on public Wi-Fi
right
at all.
Right.
It's too irregular, and
Yep.
and you can't depend on it. So, I mean, I have to be online and I have to be available. So I have to make sure that my internet works. And so far, I mean, I've had no glitches. I've been here. We checked in Friday. We've been here about 13 days. 13 days, and so far it's been great. It's been wonderful.
Yep. Time flies in the RV too. Time seems to go a whole lot faster.
I know the end of February is looming, and I'm like, I don't want to go back home.
Yeah.
But I have to, because I have a business trip in the first week of March I have to be on. So
Okay.
we will be leaving here the end of Feb.
Okay. I'm leaving March 1st and headed west. I've alternated between east and west.
Okay.
And it's amazing every time. So it's a lot of
I
lot of
like
fun out
South
here.
Texas. I've been to Florida, not with the RV, but I've been on vacation in Florida, and I just like the vibe here on South Padre. It's just chill. Nobody's in a hurry to get anywhere, and everybody's kind of laid back, and it's just an easy going, nobody's rushing around, chill. And I love it.
Yeah. Well, that's true too. Well, I mean, one of the things is people are out and about doing their stuff, and then I'm oftentimes at the laptop and it's like, oh, I can't leave right now, or give me 15 minutes. I got to close out of this. Then we can go for a walk. And are you finding, like, what would you say are the challenges or the downside of working from the RV?
It's easy to get distracted. It's easy, neighbors come by and want to visit, and we've got great neighbors around us here at our site. So it's easy to get distracted in chats and stuff. And I do try and take walks periodically throughout the day. I have 2 very active German Shorthairs, and those are just 2 of the many I own. But I take them for walks, multiple times, 15 minutes here and there, and just go for a quick walk, and gets them exercise and gets me exercise.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, that initial transition? I mean, part of this is you're living a dream alone, whereas your husband was part of that dream. And then you go, you're off on your own too, doing this incredibly brave thing, which is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's I had to really wrestle with a lot of my inner self, and like, oh my God, what am I doing, types of things. And I don't know, if your family, your friends, I mean, sometimes people don't understand what we're doing and say, are you nuts?
I think my family is very proud of me, and they've been supportive. The biggest challenge for me has been the things that you would depend on a man for, I gotta now do myself.
Yes.
I have to hitch this, I gotta dump the sewage.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it wrong, I've gotten good, but all those things that you would depend on a guy to do. The fuses go out, okay, and guess what, nobody else is fixing it but you.
Yep.
I've got tools. My nephew, bless his little heart, travels with me a lot in the summer for dog shows when we go to dog shows. And he does do a lot of that guy stuff for me when we're together. But when it's just me and my mom, it's me. And I got to do it all.
So is this something like you want to continue doing? Is this something like, are you planning to work until you're in your 60s? Do you have sort of a life plan as to what that looks like?
For now, it's going to be, I think next winter I'm doing this much longer. I'm coming down in December, and I'm going to stay until into March.
Okay.
Like just before spring break hits.
Right.
Down here, and make it longer, because I'm realizing that I really, really love this life. And I love getting away in the winter.
Oh, yes.
I've lived in Minnesota my whole life, and I don't like cold. I don't like cold. I don't like the below zero stuff we get. I'm too old for that. And
I grew up in Wisconsin.
So you know.
And I vow never to be cold in the winter again.
But I mean, I love Minnesota in the rest of the year. I mean, spring,
Yeah.
summer, and fall are beautiful. That's the reason we live there.
Yeah.
Beautiful weather, beautiful things to do on the lakes and all this stuff. But it's not, winter's not me anymore. I'm over it.
Right.
And as for like future plans, I do plan to continue to do this, at least during the winters for now. And, you know, as I get to retirement age, you know what? Anything's open at this point in time.
Yeah.
I've debated since when my husband died, you know, I rent. I didn't want to have anything to hold me down. I'm still considering if I want to buy property or buy a house or not. I'm not sure what my home base will be like. Could I live in this permanently 24/7? Yes, easily. Other than the fact that I have, you know, multiple dogs. That's the only challenge. Is now that I've had this, I'm actually considering upgrading to a toy hauler.
Okay.
Just because it gives me a little bit extra room for when I'm
Okay,
traveling with
okay.
more than 2 dogs. Because I do breed and train and show and compete with German Shorthairs as my hobby.
Wow.
So I spend a lot of time traveling on weekends in the summer. Almost every weekend I'm gone at some, you know, hunt test or a dog show.
Right.
But then my nephew is usually with me during those trips. So.
It's a lot of folks get the RV and then they find out it's just not the right one for them.
Yeah.
You know, and especially like I've got a friend who kind of jumped into RV life and has had a lot of issues. A lot of it's because she didn't choose the right one. And you know, I got to get one. And for a long time during COVID and after, it was so hard to find one. So
Yeah.
you found one, you bought it, and then sometimes you have to live in it for a while before you figure out what it is that you want.
Yeah, there's some things that, you know, it was my first RV too. And I picked this one because for very specific reasons. Living space, the amount of slide outs, and a bunk room in the middle. To me it makes no sense to have a bunk room in the back of a camper when your view is usually out the rear.
Right.
At most campgrounds.
Yeah.
So you need to have, why would you put no windows in the back?
Yeah.
You know, and that's your living space. It should be bright and airy and not closed off with a couple windows. So, and I love it, but I'm finding that with traveling with animals, especially having that extra space that could be kennel space or whatever that the toy hauler could provide. And plus, I did inherit a motorcycle from my husband that is now mine. And so it's a trike, a Harley trike.
Okay.
So I am learning how to drive it. So if I ever wanted to bring that with me somewhere, I would need to have a toy hauler because I'm not towing it behind this thing on a trailer.
Right.
I'm brave, but not that brave.
Yeah.
That's one thing I don't want to take on is
Okay.
towing something behind it.
Right.
I just think that makes it, you can't back up, period. You're done.
That's
so,
true.
At least with this, I can back up if I get into a tight spot at a gas station.
So there are a lot of people now who are looking to get into a situation like you're in, a company that's going to allow them to do remote work. But you were with your company for a long period of time. There's generally a level of trust. They know your work. They know that you can do this on your own. Do you feel like with your company or with other companies that you've heard about, is there more of that open opportunity for a new employee to work remotely?
I think so. I mean, I see postings in my company for remote jobs that are external candidates, external postings. I think a lot of companies are changing, especially with the workforce of today. They're changing that they've got to adapt their flexibility. They got to adapt more flexibility.
They do,
in order to get people
especially
to work.
the younger folks.
Yeah, especially the younger folks.
Yeah.
They're not into the the brick and mortar, being in a office every day.
Getting the corner office.
Yeah.
Whoopee.
Yeah, no, that's overrated. Completely overrated. So I mean, life. I think they have to adapt, and I think COVID showed a lot, in especially my employer, that we don't need to have an office space for all of us to communicate and do our jobs just as effectively. And I think most of us are just more productive. Actually, when I'm at my home office or even here, and my mom can attest because she's here all the time. I do stick pretty close to my computer, and I make sure I work my hours.
Right.
And, if I do slough off one day, I just make sure I work extra the next.
Well, and we're professionals, so
Yeah.
it's not to me any different than what I did in the office. So
Yeah.
for your meetings, are you using Zoom?
Yeah.
So you check in every so often?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some sort of computer program that tracks, how much time I'm online. I'm sure they do. It's technology, but nobody ever says anything or calls you on it. But I told my boss last week, I'm like, I will never do anything to jeopardize this opportunity. I'm going to make sure I work hard and do my job to the best of my ability, because to have this privilege taken away from me would be really disappointing.
Yeah.
Very disappointing.
No,
so I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize that at all.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have my own business, but occasionally think about, well, I should just pick up some extra money, do this, and the thought of having to have to go into the office at a certain time, it just sort of like, I don't want to be doing that ever again in my life. So
I don't either.
It is hard. It is really. It becomes part of who you are, and you become, I believe, healthier, happier. Opportunities are there.
Yeah.
So I really admire your bravery, the fact that you didn't let your husband's death derail your dreams. In fact, you plowed forward with it. It takes a lot of bravery. So that's very inspiring.
I hope it inspires people.
Yeah.
I really do, because death is not easy to deal with. And do I miss him? Oh God, yes. I miss having him around. But I'm taking him with me, as I go through my adventures.
Right.
And, I miss him, but what am I going to do? Sit and wallow and become depressed and miserable because he's not there? I mean, I can't. It's not in my personality to do so.
Yeah, I drive, and I'm driving my RV, and sometimes I picture my dad sitting there. My dad loved to travel, and I have a little conversation with him, and I'm like, boy, Dad, I'm glad I'm driving and you're not. He was not a good driver, but I can just see his face and the joy that he would have felt in seeing all these places. So I feel like I carry those those people with me too.
He would have loved this. And in fact, we came down here on vacation 2 years ago to South Padre. And that's why I chose mainly to come here, because I really did love this island. So, and we were here for 10 days and we had a blast. Trailered down the motorcycle and rode all over. And just so I have that memory with him of the things that we did here together, and I was familiar with it, so it felt not so unknown to come to someplace I was familiar with.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, any final words of advice you want to give to women who are thinking about, maybe I can do the RV thing, maybe I can work from the RV, but I'm kind of scared. What kind of advice, final words you have for them?
Don't let your fears derail you.
Excellent.
If you really want to do it, and do what you got to do to make it happen. If talk to your employers, see if they'd be willing to let you do that. But don't let the fear of towing a big rig, especially a fifth wheel, they're fairly easier to tow than a tow behind trailer. Don't let it derail you. Conquer your fears, ask for help. find a truck driver. I mean, I happen to be lucky. I have CDL truck drivers in my family. And it's like, learn how to do it and conquer it and go. Get on the road and go.
Great. Well,
because
thank
life
you.
is too short.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you. And hey, folks, we'll be back next week with hopefully another interview. And come on back. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye. Thanks, Donna.
Bye.